I made a video a little bit earlier where I was talking about Nick Fuentes and all of the far-right MAGA folks who are really pissed off about the Epstein files. But at the end of that video, I said that, we don't need all of these folks to come and join our side. We don't need these folks to grow a conscience. We don't need them to actually deconstruct from their reprehensible beliefs. And we don't really need them to make amends and to work for restorative justice and, to try and undo the harm that they have caused, right? Great if they want to do all that. That's yes, okay. Yes, in our wildest dreams, maybe we would see people doing that. And that would be a really good thing for all of society. And I don't want to act like there's no hope for any of those folks, but don't pin your hope on that. Right, so it's not a good idea for us to be invested in trying to get those folks to deconstruct and do all of that work, something that can take years, decades of work for them to do if they even want to enter into that work in the first place. Right, that's not a good use of our energy at all. But I do think those of us on the left can be prone to this very binary thinking, where we see people as all good or all bad, as they're allies or they're enemies. They're on our side or they're against us. And instead, I would really encourage us to think about whether or not some of those folks that are never going to be our allies could still be useful to us. Right? It's time to be a little bit more, not mercenary, but just pragmatic, right? When we look at any authoritarian regime, we have got to remember that the autocratic ruler himself is very, very weak. That's the reason that he attempts to erode our rights. That's the reason that he attempts to seize control through illegal means, because he doesn't actually have the support of the people to govern in legitimate ways. He is not a strong ruler. He cannot hold on to power on his own at all. In fact, he relies on those pillars of support underneath him, the people, institutions, businesses that are willing to go to the mat for him, that are willing to do the work of standing up for him and keeping him in power. And the pillars of support don't actually have to be doing that much active work, right? They just have to stand there and kind of prop him up. And so you may see pillars that are actively supporting Trump, that they really want him to be in power. They want to do that work for him. They love the fact that he is in charge, and they want to preach the gospel of Trump and authoritarianism, right? Like the Marjorie Taylor Greens. The Geo Group and Core Civics, who are the businesses, the corporations, they're publicly traded, by the way. Maybe I want to talk about that in another video. The corporations that are running all of these concentration camps, right? They're real diehard supporters. They want what is happening now. They are giving their energy to the regime, to making sure that it advances. But then we have these other pillars that are kind of just standing there. They're still doing work, passive work, of upholding the regime. The way that they're doing that is by appeasement, by capitulating when Trump makes demands of them, or by just not taking a public stance against him, especially when we look at powerful individuals like celebrities. So many wealthy celebrities with huge platforms are staying very, very silent right now. I don't just mean influencers. My daughter likes to say celebrities. Influencers who have large platforms. I think it's readily apparent to anybody on TikTok or YouTube by now, if they haven't used their platform to speak out against what Trump is doing, to speak out especially against what is happening with the concentration camps and the way that they are running their immigration policy, which is just simply an ethnic cleansing. And we know where they stand. We know that they are being a pillar of support. They're protecting their own profit. They don't want to lose followers, or maybe secretly, closetly, they don't want to lose followers by telling people that they voted for Trump and they're okay with what's happening. Either way, they're being a pillar of support. But there are other celebrities as well, movie stars, musicians, who are refusing to speak out. They're choosing not to use their platform at this time. And it really is silence is violence. It really is. You are supporting the Trump regime if you don't speak out against it. So there's those active supporters, there's the capitulators, the appeasers like Big Law, like Columbia University, that are willing to bend the knee and say, we will do the work of upholding the regime because we want to protect our profit and we are afraid of you. We're afraid to stand up and do the right thing. And then we have folks who are just choosing to be completely silent. Influencers, celebrities, folks who have a platform, folks who have power and influence, who are just staying silent, hoping that Trump won't notice them, hoping that by doing nothing, that they can kind of avoid being the target of his attention, and they can kind of protect their own wealth, protect their own status within the society while this regime is in power. All of those folks are upholding Trump. Refusing to stand against Trump is supporting Trump. But then we have the folks who are like just doing their job, and they're government employees, or they are members of law enforcement or the military, who are going along with what Trump is doing because it's following orders. And we have seen opportunities where within those contexts, there is space for malicious compliance, right? We saw that with Trump's military dictator style birthday parade, how the members of the army, they did a real sloppy job on purpose. What you saw in that parade was non-compliance. That was them not being able to opt out of doing that, but making sure that they did it in a way that was saying, we're being non-compliant. We don't support this. There's all kinds of other ways that we can see government employees slow roll. But they don't have to be like outright whistleblowers, right? They can slow roll, they can gum up the works, they can use the tools of bureaucracy to slow down what this regime is doing. And likewise, we can see law enforcement either be an active pillar of support. I'm sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was a police department who announced today that they would be supporting ICE in their raids, and also that members of their police department would also be masking during those raids. The normalization of masked policing is really, really scary, right? The normalization of secret police is really scary in this country. That is law enforcement being an active pillar of support. But then we see other law enforcement that's just not willing to stand up against what Trump is doing. They're not willing to go after ICE when ICE is breaking the law, violating our rights. And you might say, like, of course, law enforcement is going to support the regime, right? Everybody knows how I feel about cops. We all have our opinions about the police. I mean, what their core function is to protect property, the property of those in power, right? Not to protect us, not to protect our rights. We can acknowledge that. And I think when we, on the left, are prone to this very strong binary, we think like, okay, if these are folks that are not going to come all the way to our side, then we just have to write them off. No, y'all, no. We just need them to no longer be pillars of support. We need them to find ways to engage in anticipatory noncompliance, or in the moment to not comply with the orders of the regime. We need them to push back in any small ways. And I think when we're looking at law enforcement, that is a group of folks that we don't necessarily consider our allies. We don't consider them as reachable at all. Maybe I'm speaking in too many generalities here, but from folks I interact with on a regular basis, it's like, why would you bother with cops? And I've talked about how in Serbia, they actually had an active campaign with the military and with the police to get them to become non-compliant. It was like months of communicating to them, like, you don't want to support this guy, you're better than this, we believe that you'll do the right thing, and you won't support Slobodan Milosevic. When the time comes, you would never fire on us. And that campaign really worked. When the moment came that Slobodan ordered that they fire on civilians who were protesting, they wouldn't do it, because they had laid that foundation of like, you don't have to come to our side, you don't have to quit your job, you don't have to abandon what you're doing. Just in the moment when he asks you to comply, don't do it. Don't comply. And I saw a clip the other day from Broward County Sheriff Gregory Toney that had me thinking about that dynamic in Serbia, and had me thinking about how it is that we can try and get law enforcement to just be non-compliant. That's it. That's all they need to do in order to withdraw their support, is to just say, I'm no longer going to hold you up. When the moment comes when you ask me to do the terrible thing, I'm just going to say no. I don't have to quit my job. I don't have to be marching in the streets. I don't have to become an anarchist. I understand that I am serving as a law enforcement officer still, but I also understand where my ethics and values lie, and they don't align with fascism. So watch this clip real quick.
I don't care what country you're from. If you commit a crime in this country or commit a crime in this county, I'm coming for you. But what I refuse to do is take this notion that we need to be knocking on doors or arresting children or going into daycare centers or restaurants and taking and snatching people off these streets who have been paying taxes and contributing to this society in some positive form, regardless if they're a U.S. citizen or not. It's not within our purview. It's not within our responsibility, and I won't participate in it.
You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? We've got to get beyond this binary of you give all or nothing to the resistance against fascism. We've got to look for small ways that people can resist. We've got to see everybody as useful. There is a potential for every single person, no matter what their political ideology or their job, to extend non-compliance, to participate in non-compliance with fascism. Please be thinking about how somebody can be useful to the resistance, whether or not you like them, whether or not you like their beliefs.